Good morning, you two. How are you? Are you ready for your penultimate maths lesson with myself all on time? You might have heard me use that word before. Penultimate really means, if you think about it, ultimate is the last, so penultimate is the one before the last maths lesson. So as always, we start with our flashback 4. Let's take a look at what we've got today. Okay, here's your flashback 4. Pause the video and give it a go. Now, of course, there are 90 minutes in an hour and a half. 1 hour has 60 minutes. Half of 60 is 30, so 60 add 30 is 90. The time shown on the clock is 5 to 6 or 55 minutes past 5, although we generally tend to say 5 to 6. Now, of course, half of 20 is the same as a quarter of 40. They're both 10. And 57 subtract 43 is 14. So here is your discover today. So there is a football game that a parent and a child are going to, and it appears that they are late, not just late, very late. So you've got to consider what time the match started, and can you find the same answer using a number line? Now, the things that I'd like you to consider here are, well, what does being late mean? Have you been late for anything before? And finally, what time is the clock showing? How do you know? Pause the video now and give the discover a go. So yesterday we had a look at finding the end time with 2 pieces of information, doing a bit of problem solving. Today we're going to be doing the exact same, apart from this time we know the duration and we know the end time. What we don't know is the start time. So the way that you're going to be successful with this is you're going to start at the end time, you're going to subtract the duration, and therefore you will know the start time. Now, here, of course, if you use the clock method, if you went back, your 45 minutes, so you had to count backwards in 5s. That's where that fluency really comes in. 45, 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. You would get to 5 past 3. Okay, so the start time was 5 minutes past 3. Now, of course, you could do this on a number line. Now, because we're subtracting, just like how I went back down the clock, I don't like necessarily the way the arrows are showing you to go this way. Just like I went backwards on the clock, you would go backwards on the number line because you're subtracting 5 minutes each time. 45, 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5 to 5. There you go. So if you start at the number 50 and count back 45, you end up on the number 5. So whether you use the clock method or the number line, you still end up at the same result, which is that the match started at 5 minutes past 3. So the things that you need to consider are fluency is really important when in all aspects of maths. So here, your fluency of your multiplications of 5 are crucial. How many 5s are there in 45? I wonder. Now I wonder, can you explain why 50 minutes past 3 is the same as 10 minutes to 4? Here's your think together. So the things that I'd like you to consider when you're working this out is, where will you start counting on the clock? And which way will you need to go around the clock to figure out the answer? Are you going to go clockwise? Or are you in fact going to go anti-clockwise because you're finding a time that happened earlier? How will you show this on a number line? Remember what we spoke about. If we were adding, you would go up the number line. But because we're subtracting, let's go back to our Wilf here, we're subtracting the duration, you need to go back down the number line. Okay. So I'd like you to be able to explain that as well. If you could explain it to a grown-up, that would be absolutely fabulous, and it would really help concrete your learning for this subject. Now, can you pause the video and take the time to answer these think-togethers, bearing all of those things in mind? And your challenge for today. If a maths test takes 30 minutes, Tim and Janet finished at different times. So Janet finished at 11:45, Tim finished at 5 minutes to 12. So what time did they each start? Who started first? So the challenge is to use the number line, just like Flo's saying, to answer the question. But I'd also like you to prove that you are right. That's one of those greater depth skills, to be able to prove your thinking, to be able to justify your reasoning. Now, you don't just have to be able to talk it, because talking it through can be very complicated. You can use drawings and manipulatives to help you. And here are your answers. Now it's time to move on to your practice books. So you are finding the start time for today's lesson. So you're going to start on page 79 in your practice books. Now, as always, the answers to these questions are at the end of the video. And there are some extension questions before then, if you would like. Pause the video now and move on to your practice book. And here are your answers. How did you get on? I hope you're finding it okay, but remember, if you're finding it a little bit tricky, don't worry. You can always email me to ask for any help that you need, but also you can use manipulatives, so make your own clocks and have a go at moving the hands. It's really important that you actually feel and see how the hands on the clock move. That will really help you get a really good grasping of the concept. Join me tomorrow for your final lesson in time in Year 2. But for now, I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye.